Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the ADHD Girlie's creative journey, one step, one coffee at a time. We are talking about my creative process. This episode is inspired by Rich. He's been a longtime follower of the channel. Him and I nerd out in the Discord. Yes, there is a Discord called ARC. The link is down below. Him and I just like to geek out about fantasy, lore, world building, writing, all that kind of stuff. One day he asked me what my creative process is. How do I come up with things? Do I see things in my mind? Like, what inspires me? Like, how does it sort of just all happen up here in the mind palace, if you will? First and foremost, music. I can't really find a metaphor for this, but it's my main bullet train. It's how the idea gets going and gets built. I have a few different playlists set for my book that I play when I sit down to write. Many scenes have come to me in different ways through the process of music. I usually have like my main playlist, but I also have playlists set for my three main characters, but also sometimes if I'm world building, I have a different playlist for that. Specific playlists can trigger certain things. Like I also have playlists for like when I'm winding down for bed, and that like cues my brain that it's bedtime or settling down. So it's just like they're all literally musical cues. And so this helps get my brain, like I said, a bullet train going in the right direction that it needs to go to start building those blocks. Some scenes I have seen in my head just like be completely built out. I can see dust particles coming off of a window as they're sort of hanging in the air and the lights hitting them. I am able to feel everything the characters are feeling as if I am the characters. So literally from the ground up, I can see it all happening and feel it all. Those are some of my favorite times to write because the whole thing is just like coming into view, and I'm really thankful that my brain does that. Other times I'll hear a song and it'll create like a feeling. It's like a loose sketch, and the more I listen to it, the more it builds and builds, and then slowly the scene starts to play out in my head. It can start out with just what the character's feeling, just a feeling based on what the song is about, but it's driven in the direction of like something I want or need to happen for the character. And I'll start to see colors, and it'll give me like a vibe and an aesthetic. Because I've done all that, just once I sit down to write the scene and I have the song playing, it all sort of starts to come to life. So sometimes I feel like an architect, but also the interior designer. I mean, essentially that's what a writer is. You're doing all of it. It just sort of depends on what's happening and what the song's doing for me. Like the other day, I was in the car and it was evening. I forget what song was playing, but something triggered where like I saw one of my characters in bed. She didn't want to get up, and the sun was striking into the room, hitting her, and I could like feel the sun hitting her. You know that feeling when you're in bed and you don't want to get up and your room's warm now, it's the sun's hitting you. And that triggered the start of a scene for me. Ooh, cat hair. However, when I'm working on world building or creating a magic system, it becomes much more mechanical. So I feel like I see things more on a zoomed out lens. It's more about where the magic is coming from and like how it's formed. So if it's attached to a character's arc, I can imagine more of like the scene and sometimes build off of that. This is the interesting metaphor I used. Many times in the research, it'll spark a small flame for me, and I take that flame into a scene and it'll spread like wildfire. The characters pull me along for the ride. If I am trying to understand how I want this new part of their magic to function for the character, it's usually because there's an arc. The character has earned a new level, if you will. They've discovered, they've untapped something in themselves based on previous actions. And so we're rising up to this moment, and I want my magic to feel emotional. Something about like the magic system that I want it to look like, so I understand the process of it. But it all stems from like how I want it to visually play out in the scene. So that's kind of sort of how that goes. So again, it starts with like a loose sketch, an idea, and then I research it, and then I expand upon it as I'm writing it. So overall, I can see colors, a zoomed out focus of something mechanical, like how magic surges through someone's body, where it comes from, how it builds, or I can feel my character's feelings as if I'm them, or I'm transported entirely to the scene and I'm in the room and I can see everything from 30 to 100% of the room. I wrote notes so I wouldn't be chaotic. That's how my brain works. I feel like sometimes I am a sketch artist, a painter, or someone who's created the whole thing from the ground up. Yeah, I definitely do feel like colors come into play when like the idea is like sparking, but it hasn't turned into a flame. So when it's like building, like I said, and I'm listening to the song on repeat, that's where I really start to see colors mostly. If I'm able to see the whole scene, I feel everything. which is wild and amazing and terrifying because it's going so fast. I'm like, I have to get it all down on paper. And world building and magic building, I feel like that's more of maybe not even the architecture, but like the builder. It's like brick upon brick sort of a thing. But to sort of continue talking about the writing process, but less from a creative aspect, more about discipline. Another person in my Discord was telling me how they're trying to figure out their writing process. Outlining takes the fun out of it, but when they don't do an outline, they can never finish a manuscript. I agree that outlines are not fun, but I do think they're vital. I imagine things as what an artist does when they have to start something. So like a sketch, some sort of skeleton idea of what they're doing, and that's what I see an outline being. I think I did 3 different outlines when I first started because I didn't know what I was doing, so I did different styles to figure out. That outline is not even what my book is now, and that's fine because I think if you have a sketch in the first place, you can erase it as you go, but you need to know, like, it's kind of all ending up in the same place, but it has, the sketch lines have changed drastically. But the point is you need to know how to get from A to B, and if you have no idea how you're getting to be in the first place, then you can't even erase it and change the routes. And this allows me to go different pathways and play with my world and allow the characters and the scenes to sort of dictate which direction they want to go. I just am more like, you guys, we got to go this way. They also talked about how they don't know who a character is until they start writing, but that can cause issues in the plot. This is something I learned in my writing class. I think it is helpful because now that I'm like 47,000 words deep into my book, I feel like one of my characters that has been the most challenging for me is because I feel like I had this loose idea of her, but now that I've written more of her, I understand her better. So I've kind of gone back in the beginning and added some things because I've fully formed her out, but maybe having done this exercise ahead of time could have helped me. But also I don't know because writing surprises you. Again, you need a sketch and a roadmap. So my suggestion is write out a scene by hand as if you're the character. You can use that scene for later, but this is just allowing you to sort of free yourself up, figure out who they are, build the story and the plot around it, but not have to be attached to it. And this is where I say it's more actually like you're figuring out what the colors of your painting are. And again, nothing locks you in, but you can freely pick the colors that you enjoy and allows you to have creativity and flow. I do think that the outline helps, and within the outline, like there's a few out there online that you can find, and I would figure out which one is the best for you. I use one that Abby Emmons had. She writes mostly romances or fiction, but they were still really helpful. Using that really helped me zone in on the characters. Again, like I said, I like to have my characters take me by surprise. I don't want to be fully attached to something. I want to be able to move around, sort of let the creative spirits tell me what's in store for me that day. But we all need a roadmap. You need some guidance to make sure you're going in the right direction. So I have found that I have the most energy in the morning. I have no idea if that has to do with the fact that I have ADHD, and a lot of people say you have more dopamine in the morning, or that is just an Allie thing. Regardless, it's facts for me. I had a lot of frustration around the fact that I can't write every single day, but guess what? Like, we all aren't Stephen King's or Sarah J. Maas's or whoever in the world who, you know, is a published author and they're getting paid and their books are being pumped out constantly. Like, they all started in some place where they had a job. Like, I think Stephen King was like a mailman at one point. So I work and I go to school. Those two together make me busy full time. You know, I still have to do other things like grocery shop, work out to take care of my health, have routines so my ADHD doesn't fall over the place. It took a lot of time to get into a mindset of sort of accepting that like I need routines and that I can't do everything all at once. Doing things a couple times a week is better than not doing them at all, because I would crash out and burn from getting frustrated that I couldn't do it every single day. I usually pick now about 2 days a week, typically my days off. And if I'm lucky, if I happen to start work later that day and I don't have a lot of homework, I will allow myself to sit down and write. But on those days, they're very low pressure days. The other days, that like my 2 days off, I try to also make those low pressure, but I tell myself because I'm off, I can sit here for 2 hours if I want to get what I need to get out of writing. And then the days I have work, like one morning I only had 30 minutes because I also need to make sure that I work out. I almost lost it because I only had 30 minutes. And then I was like, you know what? Let's just see what happens. Let's just see what happens. Let's not put a pressurized thing that I didn't get an hour. Let's just see what happens. And I wrote 888 words. So you have no idea what can happen in 30 minutes to an hour. My suggestion is create a routine. Understand when you have the most energy, when you have the most focus, and build that into your schedule. So every week I look at my work schedule and I look at the days. I go, okay, these are my 2 days off, but I also need a day to film. So maybe I write on this day and, oh, look, this day I don't start work till 9. So I know I can definitely write that day and wake up at like 5:30 or 6 and not be stressed. You know, sort of pivot those windows, but also accepting that like last week was finals week. So One of my mornings went to finishing an essay because, again, that's where all my energy is, and I have to write a paper, so the brain power has to go there. So it's just adjusting and fluctuating. But the point is that you make time, you stick with it, and you be consistent. Don't hold a pressure to a word count. Yesterday, I went through a scene that I wrote the other day, my 888 word day. I went through and sort of did a cleanup on that to make sure I was happy with it. This morning, I went back to an old chapter because I'm toying with an idea that I need to see how much I need to threadline it through. I sort of played with it today. And the next time I sit down, I'm gonna look through it one more time, because I find that sometimes when you're writing and when you're applying an idea, you're so focused on that you can't see the full scope of the scene. And I know that I'm gonna have time to do editing, but also if I'm like stuck on this idea, I wanna try to have it as clean as possible. So that way when I go through the edit, it's a lot cleaner. And I think that is it for this podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed the visual of me sitting here sipping coffee, talking to you about all things about the crazy things that my chaotic brain does, that I'm learning to love and accept it for all of its craziness. I hope any and all of this was helpful for you. I hope it had and I will see you